because I'm talking to you from my cell phone. So.
All right. Well, and we're going to record this so that we will have a copy, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So we want to thank everyone to this meeting to prepare for the Global Philanthropy Seminar that is coming up very, very quickly. So we're going to touch base on some of our logistics, our agenda, our resources, and answer any questions, because we just want to make sure that all of you are ready for when we meet later this month and get started. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them. We're going to start with a few introductions. So I'm going to ask Chris to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Chris Etienne. I'm the moderator for our Global Support Seminar, and really appreciate you taking the time and making this commitment to help prepare our Endowment Major Gifts Advisors and our End Polio Now coordinators to support their clubs and districts starting in July, if not before. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Our assistant moderator, Yinka Babalola, isn't with us, but he will be joining us on site, and you'll all get a chance to meet him then. I'd like to now turn to our lead facilitators and have them introduce themselves. So let's have Mian introduce herself, and then Lise introduce herself.
Good day, everyone. Good evening to all of you from the Philippines. Mabuhay. I'm Mian Solomon, and Polio Now coordinator of Zone 10A from the Philippines. Nice to meet all of you, and happy Women's Day.
Hi, I'm Lies van Wijngaarden. I am the EMJ for Region 22. That's the Netherlands and Belgium, Flanders. And I'm happy to be the facilitator for this Global Philanthropy Seminar. Thank you.
Wonderful. Natty, would you introduce yourself?
Thanks. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Natty Moodley, a past EMGA and past Rotary coordinator based in Durban, South Africa.
Wonderful. And our fourth facilitator, Lindsay, is not able to be with us today. We will be sharing this recording, and you'll all get to meet during the facilitator orientation. So now we're going to have the staff on the call introduce themselves. And what we'll do is each one of us will introduce ourselves and then pass it on to another staff member. So my name is Sarah Remian. I'm the Director of Learning and Development. And on site, I help with a lot of the logistics to make sure our facilitators are supported and our general sessions are running. I'm going to pass it to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Latham. I am the Global Events Manager in the Learning and Development team at Rotary. And I work with Sarah and some of our other colleagues. And I work with all of you on our Train the Trainer and make sure to help you with anything that you need for your sessions. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Michelle. My name is Elizabeth Toms. I'm the Global Events Supervisor in Learning and Development. So I'm working with the curriculum and some of our event logistics to help everything run smoothly during our event in a few weeks. We do have a colleague who's not able to join us today, Madeline Maxbauer. Hopefully you will see her on site. She is having a baby later this month, so she may not be able to join us, but if she is here, she'll also be working a lot with the curriculum materials and any speeches that are happening during the seminar. I would now like to turn it over to Christine Sanders.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Great to be with all of you. I'm Christine Sanders. I'm the Manager of Regional Leader Support. So our team works with all of the EMGAs as well as 3 other groups of regional leaders worldwide. And you'll be hearing from some of our other team members right here on the call. I'm going to pass it to Renee.
Thanks, Christine. I'm Renee O'Keefe, the Associate Manager of Regional Leader Support. I support the specialists who in turn support the volunteers out in the field. So in particular for this event, I'll be working closely with Lindsay Clark, who is the EMGA specialist. And we'll be helping our volunteers learn, and enjoy the event. But first, I'll pass it over to Lori McCarthy.
Hey, I'm Lori McCarthy, Director of Member Support. I work very closely with the Regional Leader Support Team, and I'm sort of on site for this seminar, helping out in any way that I can. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Smirna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Smirna Sinanovic. My role is Engagement Lead on the Regional Leader Support Team. So I work very closely with Christine, Renee, and Lindsay on this call. I mostly work on communications for this event and any other on-site support during the event. So I'll pass it to Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Clark. I'm the EMGA specialist. So I work with the 39 current EMGAs all around the world and the 9 incoming EMGAs. Super happy to be a part of this call and excited to learn more about the event. Who has not gone? Dory, do you want to go next?
Thank you. My name is Dory Dinsmore, and I'm the manager of the Major Gift Officers for the Rotary Foundation. So I oversee the Major Gifts fundraising in North America, and our gift officers are the staff partners for the 9 North American EMGAs. So I will turn it over to David.
Thank you, Dory. I'm David Bender, Director of Global Philanthropy. I've been on the team since 2000. I oversee a team of non-North American fundraising professionals at the international offices and regionally based team. And 9 of them will be here supporting the GPS as staff partners, and we're all very much looking forward to being a part of this important event. And with that, I turn it to Claire.
I'm Claire Monroe. I'm the Polio Plus Senior Fundraising Specialist. I do all things polio fundraising, and I work with the End Polio Now coordinators, and I will be on site to meet and work with the incoming EPNCs.
So I think that took care of all of the staff. If I missed anyone, speak up now. And I see that Yinka was able to join us. Yinka, did you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Well, good afternoon or good evening from Nigeria. Good to see Sarah that you're back and shining. Happy to see you. My name is Yinka. I'll be serving as the assistant moderator for this event, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you in a few days. Our EMGAs and our end pollution coordinators. A lot of work has been in place to make the event a very memorable and successful one. And we look forward to seeing everybody.
Wonderful. I'm now going to hand it over to Michelle, and I'll be sharing my screen to walk through some logistics.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to everyone for introducing yourselves as we get to know each other before our event. Now we'd like to review the agenda for our facilitator orientation, as well as our overall training program. So just as a reminder, our participants for this training include incoming EMGAs and EPNCs. So it's those folks who are starting their term on 1 July 2023. The EMGAs will also be accompanied by their fund development staff partners. And so those are the folks that Dory and David mentioned. And those staff partners will also fully be participating in the training. So the following agenda begins when you first arrive in Evanston. You'll see that Friday, 24 March is our first event. That's when our seminar begins. On Friday night, we will have a small reception, a moderator's reception hosted by Chris Etienne for everyone who has arrived from our leadership team. The location will be at the Hilton Garden Inn in the grill room. As you can see on your screen, that starts at 17:45. So this is a chance for us to distribute your training materials. You'll also get a printed copy of the curriculum and any of the additional items that our seminar participants will be receiving in their theme bags during registration. So on Saturday morning, you will have breakfast at the hotel. And then you'll either walk over to One Rotary Center or take a shuttle. And we will start our facilitator orientation. So if for some reason you're not able to join us Friday evening, you can pick up your materials at One Rotary Center this morning. We'll have them available for you. We'll start off with a welcome from our moderator, and we'll go over the purpose of the meeting and then a training overview. And then we'll begin our practice sessions. So for each session, one of our facilitators will practice for 45 minutes as if you were practicing in the training. Your fellow facilitators, moderators, and our staff team will act as your participants. Then we'll have 10 minutes of discussion to talk about the facilitation techniques or some of the content that we just reviewed. So this is also an opportunity when we can make some small adjustments to the leader's guide and the curriculum if necessary. You'll also notice that in each practice session, there is a column devoted to staff resources. So the people on the call today, we will have some of our staff experts in the room. And this is a chance for us to have any specific content related questions answered if they come up. After our first practice session, we will have a short break. And then we'll move into another practice session, then break for lunch. So lunch we'll have all together at One Rotary Center on our 3rd floor atrium. After lunch, we have some additional practice sessions and then another refreshment break. And then we follow up with some additional practice sessions before we end the day. And that evening we have dinner all together at a local Thai restaurant in downtown Evanston called Nakhorn. So that is our facilitators team dinner. The next day, Sunday morning, again, you'll start with breakfast at the hotel. And then we'll start our sessions at 9 o'clock, where we'll reconvene at One Rotary Center. And we'll start off the day with any questions you may have had from the previous day's sessions or anything you thought of overnight that we wanted to talk about as a group before we start our practices. And then you can see we'll have some additional practice sessions followed by a break. And then after the break, we'll have one more chance to practice our curriculum, and then followed by another group lunch. After lunch, we'll have a debrief for our entire facilitator orientation. We'll review everything we went over. And during this debrief, we will also review the sessions, how they went, reminders if we made any changes, and then discuss any next steps. Some of you may have speech rehearsals following the orientation on Sunday afternoon. If you do, we will be setting those up with you individually, so you'll hear from our team soon. After the orientation ends, you'll have more time for practicing your sessions and for preparing for the training. And that evening, there will be a welcome reception for participants at One Rotary Center. So this is really the start to our seminar, and there will also be an Arch Club Society ceremony. We really encourage you all to greet the participants when the seminar begins, make them feel welcome. You'll see that right before that reception, we also have COVID testing time for our leadership team. So that is back at the hotel. We're asking all of you to test with our vendor, just to make sure we're starting off the seminar COVID-free, and so everyone can stay healthy for the rest of our time together. Okay, so that was an overview of our orientation. Great, Lise, question?
So there will be no testing before on the Friday for COVID, just on the Sunday?
So in addition to the formal vendor testing, we also are going to be providing you with at-home kits.
Okay.
So you can, before that Sunday with our vendor, we're asking you to test each morning just in your hotel room, just to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions about our orientation or kind of the lead up to when the participants arrive? So as you can see from the slides that we had up, it's really mostly about practicing all of our sessions, making sure we're all clear and understand how the sessions are supposed to run, and making sure that we all have a consistent facilitator approach so that each participant has a similar experience. The dress code for the practice session on Saturday, I would say that dress code is casual. And then Sunday, depending on the schedule, you might want to go business casual. You might not have time to change before the evening events. But Saturday can be a little bit more casual. It's just going to be us. Great questions, and keep them coming if you have any. But next up, I'm going to ask Elizabeth to take us through our next section.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michelle. So now we would like to review the Global Philanthropy Seminar agenda with you. And you'll note that this agenda is still in a draft form, so some updates may be made. What we'll show you will be a draft. You'll get that final copy, as Michelle mentioned, when we arrive, or when you arrive to Evanston. So our participant program agenda picks up where the facilitator orientation agenda leaves off. The program begins on Sunday, 26 March, when most of our participants will arrive. So at the Hilton Garden Inn, you'll see that we will be conducting that COVID-19 testing beginning at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning and lasting all the way through registration until 4:30 in the afternoon. As you might remember from the facilitator orientation, registration opens at 1500 in Hilton Garden Inn, and then afterwards there is that welcome reception at 17:30, which will take place at One Rotary Center in our auditorium, and it will feature the AKS ceremony. During this time, we'll hear brief remarks from Trustee Chair-elect Barry. So on Monday, the 27th of March, our seminar begins. All days begin with breakfast at the hotel and an optional shuttle from the Hilton Garden Inn to One Rotary Center for those people who would like to take the shuttle. Otherwise, if you've all been to Evanston, which I think you have, it's about a 10-minute walk from the hotel to our building. All general sessions will be held in the third floor auditorium. And on Monday, we will have our opening general session for the seminar. After the general session, there is a 15-minute transit period. During each transit period, to-go coffee and tea will be provided on the first floor, where the breakout rooms are located near the Rotary gift shop. So following the opening general session on Monday morning, discussion sessions will begin with the first session, Your Role and Responsibilities. This session will be a role-specific session. So as you can see on the screen, very, very small, but it's there. There is one session for EPMCs, as noted in the parentheses, and then another one for EMGAs. During this first session, participants will be able to make their first introductions and become familiar with the simultaneous interpretation equipment. After the first discussion session, there is a break in the first floor foyer and a transit period during that time to the second breakout session. The break will be 30 minutes long, and again, coffee and tea will be provided. The next discussion session will be a computer lab session using reports and resources. The session is also role specific. After that session, everyone has lunch in Cafe International on the lower level of One Rotary Center. And during this time, participants can attend the optional Rotary Initiatives Fair beginning at 1 o'clock in the third floor atrium. This is a chance for participants to learn about other initiatives that are happening in Rotary, including membership strategies, service and engagement, public image, fundraising, and the annual fund. During this time, participants can also visit the Rotary gift shop during their lunch. So after lunch, we move into our second general session, which will be focused on teamwork. After the general session, there is a transit period, and then we move into our next discussion session, working with others. This session you'll see is a joint session for all roles. And then after this session, we have a break on the first floor. Our next session will be one called Leading Change, and it's another joint session. This will be our last session of the day. So afterwards, we have the optional shuttle going from one Rotary Center to the Hilton Garden Inn. And then we will have a group dinner that evening at a local restaurant in Evanston called La Tour. It's just around the corner from one Rotary Center. Our last day of the seminar on Tuesday again begins with breakfast at the hotel and the shuttle service for those who would like to use it. In the morning general session, we will focus on polio eradication and the 4-step process. So following our transit period, EPNCs will attend a session called How to Get to 50 Million and Endgame Strategy. And EMGAs will go to their first part of a 4-step process discussion session. After the session, there's a break. And then following the break, participants will attend another role-specific session called Opportunities for Giving for EPNCs and the second 4-step process discussion session. There we go, back on the screen. All right. In that afternoon on Tuesday, we'll have lunch, of course, and then participants can attend the optional Rotary staff Q&A. And during that session, they're able to ask questions of staff experts that are specific to their role. And we will also, again, have the Rotary gift shop open for those people who would like to visit that. After lunch, we will have our 4th general session focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion and donor-centric practices. So after that, participants will go into their next joint breakout session called Events and Recognition. After another transit period, we have 2 role-specific sessions called Accomplishing Your Goals. Then a final transit period, and then we head into our final closing general session. Following the closing general session, there will be a closing reception, which will take place on the 18th floor. And then after that, a shuttle will be available between one Rotary Center and the Hilton Garden Inn until after the reception. So our 2 days go by really quickly, but we've packed a lot in there. Are there any questions about the event agenda? Please, I see your hand up.
What I see in the staging for the events on the discussion, you have group 1, 2, 3, and 4. How must I see that? How is that in the room, or is that a subgroup? How should I perceive this?
Great question. So those groupings are made to help facilitate the small group activities that will happen during the session. And one reason that we put them together for you in advance is so that we make sure that anyone who speaks a language other than English has a good experience and is not in a group where there are multiple languages. So when the group activity starts, you'll be able to see in your leader's guide some instructions for how to put them together. The people will not be pre-assigned seats in the room. They will have to get together and kind of make those groups after you have put them in. But all of our attendees will have this on their agenda as well. And what we saw for the Global Support Seminar is after the first session or two, everyone started to sit together at the beginning of the session since they started to see that they'll have these groupings made for themselves.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course. Any other questions about our event agenda? Leanne?
How do we go about the needs for translation amongst our participants?
So everyone will get a workbook in the language that they speak. So if you are a Korean speaker, you will have a workbook in that language. In this session, we will have simultaneous interpretation. So we will all be wearing headsets. And as you speak as a facilitator, we will have interpreters who are interpreting simultaneously from a room outside of your discussion room. You won't be able to see them, but you'll be able to start to hear it. And anytime someone speaks, again, say Korean, you'll be able to hear that interpreted back in English. So there's a little slight pause in between the interpretation, but it is for the most part very simultaneous.
Thank you.
And that's something we'll be able to practice during that facilitator orientation, at least using the equipment. We won't have interpretation on Saturday or Sunday because we all will be speaking English, but you'll get a sense of what the equipment looks like, how to use it, how to put it on, and how that will work in the rooms. Please, another question.
Hey, another question. do we have the beautiful clocks in the rooms for ticking off the time? Because it's very useful.
It is very useful. Yes, you will have a presenter table in your rooms, and on that table will be some materials like your interpretation, receiver, and then a clock, so you will be able to gauge the time. I love how prepared you all are thinking about this event. This is great. All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, we'll definitely still have time at the end if more come up. So now I'm going to go over a little bit more about our materials, including our leader's guide and our workbook. So you'll see on the screen here the two images of our leader's guide and workbook covers. You will have both training materials, and participants will have a printed copy of the workbook only, so the white colored one on the right on the screen. The leader's guide is, of course, integral to your role as a facilitator during the GPS, but the workbook will also be important as you prepare to facilitate your session, and you consider how the participants will use the workbook based on the facilitation instructions. The setup of the workbook matches the leader's guide, with each session's title listed along with the learning objectives. From there, the content of the workbook will only include what is referenced for participants in the leader's guide. The participant activities or relevant session notes and resources will be included in each session. So let's take a closer look at the leader's guide first. The leader's guide will be organized with tabs in the printed copy, and each session in the leader's guide is set up in the same way. The sessions will begin with the title of the session in the blue header, the date, session time, and duration, and the audience will be listed below. After that, there are learning objectives which state what the participants will be able to do or know after the session has concluded. The workbook sessions will also have the same learning objectives, as I mentioned, listed at the start of their session. So after the learning objectives, there is a table of contents for the workbook activities, and this is just a summary. The curriculum there will be instructions on when to direct participants to turn to their workbook and to what pages. At the bottom of the page here, you'll see a timeline for the sections of the sessions in the leader's guide. Again, this is a summary, and the information is repeated throughout the curriculum. As you review the leader's guide and become familiar with the content, you'll notice that each session starts with an introduction. And you'll also see a timestamp for how long you should spend on each section. You'll be able to use the timing listed to help you manage your time throughout the session during the seminar. And as I just mentioned, you'll have a clock at your facilitator's table to help you with that as well. You will use the instructions in the blue facilitator note box, like the example you see on the screen. This will help you guide participants through the session. The information will either help you instruct the participants to do something, or it will give you some more information that you may need to know. The notes regularly ask you to refer to the particular workbook pages that were mentioned on that first page. This is again helping you refer participants to the correct workbook section. You'll also notice the instructions for referring to the participants' workbooks are in bold, and the interactions with the workbooks will always be below the bold instructions in the facilitator note box. As we move through the sections of the session, you will also see that there are other common features. There is a bold heading that indicates the start of a new section. In this case, it is supporting districts. And again, there's a timestamp for how long you should spend on the section. The bold text that follows, like what you see here, indicates a discussion question for you to ask the room. These can be put in your own words, but we do want you to follow the Leader's Guide content and lead participants through all the sections in the session. Also, in each session, there will be additional facilitator notes throughout. You will also see bulleted key points, which is text for you to say out loud to the room. Again, we do encourage you to put these in your own words or paraphrase them while still aligning with the written content. Throughout the sessions, there will be different activities for you to put people into small groups or pairs. These instructions you will share with the participants, and you can find them in the blue facilitator note box. So on the screen, you will see an example of the note box with standard instructions for leading participants through a group activity in their workbook. And this is where you'll see how the groups assigned on the facilitator's agenda will be matched with those small groups. You'll also see recommended amounts of times to allot to each exercise in parentheses and instructions to have groups report back on each scenario. During the in-person facilitator orientation prior to the seminar, you'll be able to practice all of these. When you are at a section with a discussion question, you will notice that some of the questions include sample responses. Those are the responses there in italics. These can help you guide the room towards any answers if the room is silent or if our regional leaders are struggling to respond. At the end of each session, you'll have a standard facilitator note box where you will ask participants to review the learning objectives and to turn to the back of the workbooks to complete the Your Goals section related to one of their goals and fill out the session evaluation. The session evaluation will be available on the table of contents as well as each page in the discussion room. The Your Goals section participants will complete in the workbook is shown here. This goals page provides participants with a list of key takeaways from each session of the seminar. And then we also have here an example of the evaluation. This evaluation will be accessible via a QR code that participants can scan with their camera on their mobile device or website address that they can visit. There will be some printed copies of the evaluation in case participants need them, but using the QR code I think has gone well for the few events that we've used it for. So a final few notes about the materials. As we noted, you'll receive your printed copy of the Leader's Guide and the workbook when you arrive in Evanston. There will be a flip chart and markers in each of the breakout rooms during each session. And in each discussion room, there will be the clock for you to manage your time as well as a lavalier microphone for you to clip onto your shirt and for the interpretation equipment. So all of the formatting throughout the leader's guide, the timeline, the font of the key points and the discussion questions, the blue facilitator note box are the same throughout each session, so that there will be consistency across all of the sessions. As you prepare, note that there is also information at the very beginning of the leader's guide in the introduction, which will help you understand the format. Preparation and practice are important, so take the time to review your session before coming to Evanston and to practice running through the session multiple times out loud and ideally with a practice audience. Consider how you will present the introductions, the learning objectives at the beginning and at the end of each session, and directions to open the workbooks. Practice putting the key points in your own words as well as those discussion questions. When you come to the facilitator orientation, you will be able to practice more, so that time you won't personally practice every session that you'll lead. We are excited for you to lead the sessions at the Global Philanthropy Seminar and encourage you to familiarize yourself with the Leader's Guide and follow the guide and workbook so that the sessions can remain focused on the content and you can stay on track with your timing and align it to the workbook that will be used. So again, we'll pause here. And does anyone have any questions before we review some facilitation best practices? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you. I'm managing a few things and had to unmute myself. So we're excited to talk to you about some facilitation best practices and know that all of you have a lot of experience. So on the screen, you see a few of those best practices. As Elizabeth mentioned, practice, practice, practice. We encourage you to read through all of the sessions. We encourage you to do those readings out loud. That's a great way to practice how you would phrase them so it is natural for you. It will also help make sure you understand the content and what we're trying to convey. We ask that everyone start their sessions on time. As you see, we have a very tight schedule, and we encourage you to start those sessions and end the sessions on time. We ask that you do not start your sessions early. Even if everyone is in the room, use that time for networking. We like to have our sessions start and end on time so that people have some downtime as well. Now, keeping track of time is very important. And as Lee's mentioned, there are wonderful clocks available for everyone on their facilitator table in the U to help them do that. And as you practice your sessions, thinking about how you'll manage the time and practicing that is another effective practice. We definitely encourage you to be yourself. You all have wonderful personalities, and we really want those to come through so that you are authentically engaging with the participants. Now, as was mentioned, there will be interpretation equipment, and everyone will be listening to that. We have many users who are also using English as a second language, and we have facilitators who are using English as a second language. So enunciating your words and speaking slowly and clearly will help make sure everyone can understand and participate. Now, everyone has their blue Rotary name badge. We ask you to bring those to wear during the seminar. If you forget yours, don't worry, we will have a paper name tag that you can use. And lastly, we're asking that you wear clothing with pockets or have a belt. As you can see from the photo included, there is some equipment that you'll be wearing as a facilitator. So you will have the headphones that you'll wear to hear the interpretation, and those are attached to a receiver, and so that you can receive it. You will also have a lavalier mic that you'll put on your lapel. and you need to wear a transmitter for that. So having clothing with pockets or a belt will help you manage all of that equipment and allow you to have your hands free. Now we'll talk about facilitation best practices and what you can do to prepare for the seminar. Oh, we also have our some learning courses. We have Facilitator's Basics course. If you want to refresh on facilitation best practices, managing a training session course, and an introduction to adult learning. This is included in the basics learning plan for all of our regional leaders, incoming regional leaders, to help them also understand these concepts. There is the Becoming an Effective Facilitator course, which is included in the learning plan. And then we also will be sharing a link to a demonstration video from the International Assembly. Our seminar trainers for the International Assembly recorded a demonstration video of using a Rotary Leaders Guide and how they run a mock session. And then they debrief a little bit at the end on how they approach that session. It's a great opportunity to see a demonstration. Are there any questions or any best practices you use as a facilitator that you would like to share with the group?
Well, I would like to say practice, 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 and follow the leader's guide.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lise. Great. We appreciate everyone being with us today. And we want to remind you the next steps are reviewing those materials. Make sure that you have your electronic copies of the leader's guide and the workbook, looking at both of those together. Make sure you feel comfortable with how they work together, looking over the agenda and which sessions you're facilitating. And we'll remind you that if someone, you could be asked to facilitate a session you weren't planning to. If someone is not feeling well, you might be called. So we definitely encourage you to review all the sessions and make sure you're familiar with all of them. And we are looking forward to seeing all of you in Evanston. So we have reached the end of our content. And again, I wanted to open it up in case anyone had questions. Lise.
So, Sarah, you mean that it could happen, it might be happening that I would do a training for EMPCs in that case?
Yes,
Wow.
that is, anything is possible, Lise.
That is challenging. Wow.
I am glad you have raised this. Again, we have COVID and it is cold and flu season still here. So at times we have had facilitators arrive and then not feel well and not be able to do their session. So in case of that emergency, we would call on you as a facilitator. Now, you can help each other to encourage each other to stay healthy, get a lot of rest, drink a lot of water, so that that doesn't happen. So take care of each other as well. Lise, great question. Mian.
I just like to tell Lise, stay healthy, so I don't have to cover for EMGA. I'll take care of and polio. You stay healthy, Lise.
I will do my utmost best, Mian.
Very good. I appreciate that support of your colleagues. That's very important. Now, Chris, did you have any closing remarks for the group?
Just want to thank everybody for being here today, and thank you again for your leadership to help make this seminar a success. And I look forward to seeing you all soon in Evanston. Thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful. And on behalf of all the staff team, I want to thank everyone. And I can't express how excited we are to do this event in person together. We are really looking forward to it. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.